Alright, this is a spooky movie, so we gotta make a spooky atmosphere. A body of a John Doe was brought into the local county morgue recently. Now, it may look like JT, but I assure you, it's not JT. But we're gonna do an autopsy on this John Doe's review of the Autopsy of Jane Doe from 2016. This is the disturbing face of our John Doe. Let's hear his thoughts on this film. Now, dissecting the part of his brain that is responsible for memory, we could see that he's kind of stupid because he completely forgot that this movie existed until just hearing it on a countdown recently. And, insult to injury, also forgot that this is directed by, I forget his name, I don't know how to say it, André Øvredal, who is the director of Troll Hunter, which is a great found footage movie. He also went on to do Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, and the film from this year, The Last Flight of the Demeter, which I still haven't seen, but I've heard mixed things on. Or he's heard mixed things on. So at this point, I will just speak for the John Doe, so we don't get confused here. Alright, so anyone who hasn't seen The Autopsy of Jane Doe, it's about a father and son who work in a morgue. Seems like this is just a family business for generations. And we have Emile Hirsch and Brian Cox. Is that the other one? Yes, that play the two of them. We also have Olwen Kelly, who plays Jane Doe. And she basically just plays a dead corpse this entire film. And what a great decision just to have an actual actress play this role and not just use a dummy or something. You know, there are shots with, effects being done. But for the most part, a lot of the shots of her, it's just her laying there. If you think it's easy to play a dead corpse, it's not. Evidence. See? So she does a great job in here too. So this Jane Doe is found at a crime scene where the other three people are all dead. They don't know how they died, and it seemed like they were trying to get out instead of being trapped inside. So already there's mystery, and the sheriff in town knows Tommy, the father, for a long, long time. This is a small town, so they get the body of this Jane Doe, and they start doing the autopsy on her. They start to find things that just keep getting weirder and weirder that indicate that Jane is not just a human being. Like, there's something more to this woman. After dissecting the part of the brain of this John Doe that emotional responses are held, he enjoys the shit out of the atmosphere in this movie. This is such an atmospheric film. You want to call it slow burn, I hate that term, but if you want to use it, sure. But this does creep along, but it gets more and more unsettling with each passing scene. The directing is phenomenal here. The acting is great. The dynamic between Austin and Tommy, father and son, is great here. I love how he's showing, like, his son how to be this great mortician. And then we have this little side plot with Austin and his girlfriend, Emma, where he talks to her, and they were supposed to go out on a date. Then they got the body of Jane Doe, and he ends up staying to help his father because his mother, his father's wife, passed away 2 years prior. So I like the whole dynamic that the father and son, that his son doesn't want to do this. Austin doesn't want to be a mortician. But he's doing this just to help his father. Even though it has been 2 years, like, he's still obviously affected by the loss of his wife, and his son's afraid to leave him. And I think all of that's handled excellently here. So from now on, spoilers, let's jump deep into Jane Doe, the autopsy of. Now, our subject here often has a lot of nope moments for movies, that point in the movie's events when just be like, no, I'm out. Right from the beginning of this movie, that's my nope moment. I would never be able to be a mortician and work on bodies and cutting them up and shit like that. Wouldn't be able to do it. So I nope out right here at the very, very beginning of this movie. The score is also very good in this film. Like, it sucks that I forgot all about this movie. But when I rewatched it the other night, I started really remembering things and saying, yeah, the atmosphere is fantastic in this, and the sound design's great in this, and there's so much great imagery in this movie, and just the feeling of dread that keeps building. Yeah, this film's not as talked about as it should be. Like, that's for damn sure. And being a film called The Autopsy of Jane Doe and centering around an autopsy, the autopsy looks very realistic. How do I know? I plead the fifth. But I love how the father is trying to train his son and show him, you're good at this, you're smart, you're my son, like, you'll get there, but there's still things you have to learn. And that's shown to great effect in the opening scene when they're working on this body of this guy who tripped, fell, and died while he was cooking in the kitchen. Then a fire spread and burnt him alive, and he's thinking that he died from smoke inhalation, until the father comes and shows him that there's a concussion, there's a mark on his skull, so he hit his skull. And all of that is great. Like, that's what really sells the dynamic between the two characters here, because you're spending the whole film with these two people. So if their performances and dynamic together doesn't click and gel, like, you lose the whole film. But they do a phenomenal job here. Then Austin's girlfriend, Emma, comes by, and like I said, they were going to go on some type of date. And he says, give me to 11 o'clock, and I'm all yours. And then, of course, as they get the body of Jane Doe in a bit, it just keeps on getting more mystifying, the things that they find in this body. And, like, how do you break away at that point? Like, I'd be completely fixated in that mystery. But again, I wouldn't be there because I'm not a fucking mortician. But all the stuff when she wants to, like, see a body and just look at a dead body up close, and the father comes in and says, let her pick one. And she ends up picking one. He pulls it out. All of that's great because they set up the whole thing with the bell that they tie to the feet of the bodies. And he explains, Tommy, he says, I'm a traditionalist. Like, back in the day, they used to tie the bells around the bodies because it was hard to tell the difference between coma patients and people that were actually dead. All of that is excellent at setting up some of the scares later on in this film that involve that bell ringing. Let's check out our specimen real quick and make sure we're getting all his thoughts on this film correct. Looks like it's all good. The whole design, I mean, you can't really call it design, it's her, it's an actress. But just the way she's lit, and I don't know if they put some makeup on or something to make her body look like that bright and glistening and stuff, or if it's just the lighting, but the way she looks, it's fucking spooky, man. Like, it really is spooky. If I was a mortician, and I'm sure they've seen some shit, so he's really not fazed by this, and he shows it. I see a body like that get rolled in, I'm out. Like, I'm done. She looks so creepy. So right away, they start the autopsy. The sheriff says that they need to cause a death by morning for him to make sense of any of that crime scene that we see briefly at the very beginning. And they just find a bunch of weird stuff with this body. Like, first of all, her eyes are all glassy and cloudy and look just fucking scary, man. Then they start looking at her externally, and they find that there's no bruise marks or anything like that, but yet her ankles and her wrists are all broken. They find that her tongue was crudely cut out. Like, not with a surgical tool or anything. She didn't bite it off. It was cut out. That she's missing a tooth that they later find when they open her up inside of her, with wrapped in a parchment that references the Bible. So it just keeps getting stranger and stranger. And once they bring this body into the morgue and they start doing this autopsy, something supernatural starts happening all around them. And at first, I don't know, the first time I saw this and then rewatching it, I got a lot of vibes of Lilu from The Fifth Element. Like, she was some type of, like, supreme being in a human's body, but it turns out being more sinister than that. And then later on we find out that she's actually a witch, but she didn't start out as a witch. She was an innocent person who was tortured and accidentally turned into a witch. And she's feeling every bit of pain and agony while supposedly being dead, even though she is technically alive. When they do the whole scene when they cut part of her brain out and they put it under the microscope, they could see that the cells are alive, even though she's missing a heart they took out already, and her lungs, which are all blackened like she should have third-degree burns, yet her body is in perfect condition. Love the images of the blood dripping out of her into the drain on the table when they cut her open. And even the son says, like, they're not supposed to bleed like that after they're dead. Like, great shots there. The song that they use on the radio when, like, the signal gets interrupted and it gets changed to a channel, and let the sun shine in, used to such great effect. Like, it is such a creepy tune. So the first big event to happen here is they find the cat in the vents, and he's dead. And then it's a sad scene when the father has to put him in the incinerator and burn the cat's corpse. And he says to his son, that was your mother's cat. It's one of the last few things I had of her. Like, that's what I mean. This movie has a lot of heart. You really feel for these two guys. And when shit starts hitting the fan, you don't want anything to happen to them, which makes the ending of this, like, very impactful. Then, I mean, like, they can't just call it a night and go back the next day. I know they said they need a cause of death, like, by the morning, but still, I mean, his cat just died, like, of unknown causes. But they end up still going in and doing more of the autopsy. They pull out of her digestive tract gypsum weed, which is a paralytic agent. So this woman was paralyzed also. So this woman went through some shit. The more that you find out, like, what this woman went through, and then when you get the reveal, like I said, that she's feeling all of this, you really feel for her, even though she does kill them, because she just wants revenge for what happened to her. So then they find the parchment in her digestive tract that has her tooth that's missing in there, and it has Roman numerals on it, and it references the Bible, Leviticus. I forget all that Bible shit. But this is, to me, like, the low point of the movie. It feels like they just needed a way to fit this in, this whole explanation of what she is, that it feels kind of forced. What, did these people, the witches who did this to her back in the Salem witch trial days, why put the parchment in her stomach? It's almost as if they knew hundreds of years later her body was going to get dissected and found. Like, it feels very plot convenient, is my point. Honestly, they could have just not went in that direction with her being, a witch, not witch, whatever, and just kept it a lot more ambiguous, and we never find out exactly what she is. We just know that she's not human, and she has some type of supernatural, paranormal, whatever you want to call it, type of powers. And that's it. Like, if we just found that out and had no further explanation, I think it might have benefited this movie a bit. But still great. Even if I was a mortician, which I told you I wouldn't be, but if I was, this is my nope moment. When they peel the skin back and there's tattoos all on the inside of her skin, that's when it's time to go, right? Can we all agree that's the time to leave? You can't make sense of it no matter how you try to look at it. Somebody peeled her skin back and she voluntarily got tattoos all over it, and then they put it back together and her body looks perfect afterwards and stuff. Like, you know that this makes zero sense. This is time to leave the morgue. But they don't right away, because they don't get a chance to, because then the power goes out and the bodies are missing. The little things that they put them in, the shelves, all of them are open, and all the corpses are missing. Now, later on, we find out that Jane Doe here can cause hallucinations, because they think they're trapped in here when they do try to leave in a few minutes. The elevator isn't working because of the power, and they can't get out of the cellar door because a tree fell on top of it. And there's a whole storm going on throughout this film as the events progress. But then we find out at the end that there was no storm, because they say on the radio, like, another beautiful day or something like that. So she made the storm happen. She made all of these hallucinations. She's just making them see it as if that the bodies are all gone. So at this point, they're both freaking out. They go in the office to try to use the phone. They can't get a call out, and then the line dies. Then we get a great scare, man. And like I said, the sound design is great in this movie. Just the sound of the bell going off. And Austin starts looking at, like, this curtain or door or something, and starts walking towards it, which, why the fuck would you walk towards it? You know what those bells are for. You know, like, he probably ties them to the people's feet. So he knows that if he's hearing that bell ring, the cat's dead, so you can't even say the cat's playing with it, and that explains the sound. It's got to be a corpse walking around. And yet he walks towards it. I don't know. Seriously, though, every shot of Jane Doe from above, of just her cloudy blue eyes and with her mouth agape, all of that, every single shot of that looks so scary. Great scene when they try to burn her body. They try to get it to the crematorium and they can't because she's fucking with everything. So then they say, screw it, we're just gonna light her ablaze with torches, and they torch her body, and then it all just pools to the ceiling, and her body's still in perfect condition. Man, could you imagine being in these two guys' shoes, going through all this? Love this scene, probably the best scene in the movie for me. And I love how earlier on, before the power went out and stuff, they make a point to show the clock and show the time to call back to when Austin told Emma, his girlfriend, to come back at 11, just to keep in your mind that she's coming back. Then they're trying to get in the elevator and they hear the bell ringing, and it's so atmospheric. And then it's getting closer and closer, and Tommy picks the axe up, and they get in the elevator and they can't shut the doors. And he goes and he axes the thing, and you see it as a corpse. So, again, it's a hallucination. And he ends up, it's Emma. And so Tommy axed her and killed her. And then we have to see Austin, crying on her body and stuff. All of that is fantastic. Best scene in the movie. I'll tell you this, though. These guys got some work ethic. No matter what crazy shit's been happening, this guy just killed somebody. His son's girlfriend. Good. They go right back to work, working on the brain, and this is when they find out she's still alive. Amazing work ethic from these two individuals. All right, now discussion time. This whole ending is just edited so well with, again, just the images of Jane Doe, and then Tommy is trying to talk to her and say, I'll do the ritual. After they find out that she was the whole innocent victim turned into a witch by a ritual, he says, I'll do the ritual and just leave my son alone. Now, here's the question. Austin ends up screwing things up, and it costs him his life, right? Because we see in great sequences, we see Tommy's ankles, I don't know why I said, we see Tommy's wrists and ankles both break, just like her, and I love how the blood that was near the drain on the table comes back into her body. All of that looks great, too. And then the next part of the ritual would be to slice his tongue out. And that's why he's reaching for the knife or scalpel or whatever. And then Austin takes it, thinking to put his dad out of his misery, stabs him and kills him. Now, if he would have let his father reach for that cutting device and chop his tongue out, would that mean that Austin would have lived? That's a good theory, but let me know what you guys think. Let me know how you take that ending there, because then after this, Austin goes and he has another hallucination that Jane Doe is causing, that the sheriff is above the cellar doors, and that they cleared everything away, and that here, just push on, the door's not opening, and then he gets a scare and falls backwards and falls one short level. I mean, it's not high up, but whatever. He falls and he breaks his neck and dies. So everyone dies. Then the sheriff gets here, and he's left with the same puzzling question that he had with the very beginning crime scene when they got Jane Doe's body. What the fuck happened here now? And it's a great ending. But yeah, if Austin didn't kill his father and his dad did cut his tongue out, do you think that would have spared Austin's life, like Tommy was begging Jane Doe? Or do you think she would have killed him no matter what? But that's the Autopsy of Jane Doe, 2016. Great movie. Totally forgot about it. So this was a very fun watch. Let's just check on our subject real quick before we go. Everything good, buddy? Yeah, he looks happy. Alright, guys. Wherever you're from, hope you're having a good morning, afternoon, or night. And I will talk to you soon. Take care, everybody.